The 5 Panama Pacific commemorative coins were produced in connection with the 1915 Panama Pacific International Exposition in San Francisco.Struck at that city's mint. The issue included round and octagonal $50 pieces, excepting modern bullion coins. These 2 gold pieces are the highest denomination ever issued and the largest coins ever struck by the United States Mint. The octagonal $50 piece is the only U.S. coin to be issued that is not round. In January 1915, Congress passed legislation for a silver $half as well as a gold quarter eagle, and 2 $50 pieces, 1 round and 1 octagonal. The Mint had already consulted artists. Treasury Secretary William G. McAdoo initially rejected all the designs. 2 of them, Robert I Aitken for the $50 pieces and Charles Keck for the gold persevered, and the submissions were used. The half-dollar and quarter eagle were designed by Chief Engraver Charles E. Barber, possibly with the participation of his longtime assistant George T. Morgan. The coins were vended at the exposition by prominent numismatist Faranzib. They did not sell well, and many of each denomination were returned for melting. Only a few hundred of each of the $50 pieces were distributed, making them the lowest mintage commemorative coins. They catalog for up to $200,000, depending on condition. Background: private gold pieces, sometimes dubbed pioneer gold, were struck several times during the 19th century from a locally produced bullion in areas where federal coins were scarce. These unofficial coins came from sites ranging from Georgia to Oregon, many ranging in denomination from 25 cents to $50, are relics of the California gold rush and its aftermath. The $50 denomination was struck by private minters such as Kellogg & Co. The private $50 pieces were round in form, but those struck by Augustus Humbert for the U.S. Assay Office at San Francisco, prior to the establishment of the San Francisco Mint in 1854, were octagonal. Humbert's pieces were not money in a legal sense, as Congress had not authorized them as legal tender, and were officially deemed ingots. Nevertheless, they contained the full value in gold, bearing the denomination $50. They were called slugs or quintuple eagles by the public. They circulated widely in California and elsewhere in the far west, and were accepted on par with federal gold coins. All of these $50 pieces, public or private, are very rare and valuable today. One of Humbert's octagonal pieces, dated 1851 and with a lettered edge, sold at auction in 2010 for $546,250. The only $50 piece produced by the United States Bureau of the Mint prior to 1915 was the 1877 patent half union, produced experimentally at the Philadelphia Mint, though it was not approved as a circulating coin. In 1904, San Francisco merchant Reuben Hale proposed an exposition in his home city for 1915, both to commemorate the opening of the Panama Canal and to mark the 400th anniversary of Vasco Núñez de Balboa becoming the first European known to view to the Pacific Ocean from the Americas. In phrasing then current, he discovered the Pacific. Although the 1906 San Francisco earthquake and fire caused a momentary setback to these plans, it actually sparked additional fundraising. Many of the wealthiest in California gave financial support. The state matched private donations dollar for dollar, and in 1911, President William Howard Taft selected San Francisco over its competitor, New Orleans, to host the fair. The Panama Pacific International Exposition, constructed in San Francisco by the Golden Gate at a cost of $50 million, was opened from February 20, 1915, to December 4, 1915. About 19 million people attended, and the exposition was a great success, generating enough profit to build the San Francisco Civic Auditorium with about $1 million remaining. The Palace of Fine Arts is the only building from the fair which remains on the site. Commemorative coins were not then sold to the public by the mint, as they subsequently have been. Instead, a commemoratives authorizing legislation would designate a group or organization to purchase the coins from the mint at face value, and sell them to the public as a fundraiser. Among those who had pushed for commemorative legislation in the past, and had been involved in the sale of the resulting coins, was Farran Zeeb, a collector and numismatic promoter who had by 1914 served as president of the American Numismatic Association. Zeeb was a controversial figure. Some felt the coins with which he had been involved had been sold at inflated prices, but he helped promote the hobby with his exhibit, Money of the World, which later became part of the Chase Manhattan Money Museum. Legislation. Several proposals for commemorative coins had been introduced by mid-1914, though none had been issued by the mint since 1905. 1. Sponsored by New York Senator Elihu Root, called for a commemorative $quarter marking a century of peace, as well as the August 1914 opening of the Panama Canal. 2 bills were introduced calling for coins to commemorate and benefit the Panama Pacific Exposition. H.R. 16902 was introduced by California Congressman Julius Kahn on June 3, 1914. Senate Bill 6309 was introduced in that body by New Jersey Senator James E. Martin on July 6. This bill called for 2 $50 pieces, a quarter equal to $2.50 in gold, a commemorative gold dollar, and a half-dollar. The octagonal pieces were intended to recall the unofficial $50 coins struck during the gold rush. Martin's bill passed the Senate on August 3, having been approved by the Committee on Industrial Expositions, to which it had been referred. The only objection was procedural, by Utah's Reed Smoot, that the bill should have instead been referred to and approved by the Senate Committee on Banking and Currency, or its Committee on Finance. Neither Smoot nor any other senator objected to the bill itself, which Martin indicated had the support of Treasury Secretary William G. McAdoo. S. 6309 was the following day sent to the House of Representatives, where it was referred to the Committee on Coinage, Weights and Measures. It emerged from the committee on September 1, 1914, with several amendments, one of which increased the combined authorized mintage of the 2 $50 pieces from 2,000 to 3,000. 6309 was briefly considered by the House of Representatives on January 4, 1915, and passed after Kahn successfully proposed a minor amendment to strike out the dollar sign from the phrased silver coins of the denomination of $50 each. The Senate concurred in the House amendments 2 days later, passing the bill without question, change, or opposition, and President Woodrow Wilson signed it into law on January 16. Preparation. Once Kahn's bill was introduced in the House, Mint Director George E. Roberts began to make informal arrangements to prepare for the commemorative issue. The bill called for 4 different designs, plus a commemorative medal to be sold to fairgoers, with an award medal to be given to prize-winning exhibitors. All of these pieces were to be struck by the Bureau of the Mint, and Roberts asked the Commission of Fine Arts to recommend artists. Among those recommended were Adolph A. Weinman and Bela L. Pratt. Others included sculptors Evelyn Longman, Robert I. Aitken, Charles Keck, and Paul Manship. Roberts read to several of the sculptors, and found Aitken interested in creating the $50 pieces. The Mint directors' tentative negotiations with Aitken for the large gold coins, and with Buffalo nickel designer James Earl Fraser for the award medal, ended when Roberts resigned in November to take a banking job. McAdoo appointed Dr. Frederick Dewey as acting director of the Mint. Dewey and McAdoo did little regarding the Panama Pacific coins until Congress began to pass the authorizing legislation in early January 1915. Once it had passed both houses, and was awaiting Wilson's signature, Dewey arranged for a meeting in New York with Aitken, Keck, Longman, and Manship. The authorizing act required the Mint to begin delivering coins by the opening date of the fair, February 20, 1915. And although this proved impractical, the Mint still acted quickly. McAdoo approved their choices of Aitken for the $50 pieces, Longman for the quarter eagle, Keck for the dollar, and Manship for the $half on January 21. All four artists were already at work, and Aitken responded to the notification of his hiring by submitting designs which were similar to the actual coins. By January 29, all four artists had submitted bronze casts of the proposals. Dewey forwarded them to McAdoo, who solicited advice from the Commission of Fine Arts, his assistant secretary, William Malbon, and chief engraver Charles E. Barber, and others at the Philadelphia Mint. McAdoo had asked that the Mint prepare alternative designs for all the coins, and Barber did so, starting with the $half. Rejections to all four of the outside artists were sent on February 5 over McAdoo's signature. The reasons for this are uncertain, as the rejections are terse. Anthony Swiatek and Walter Breen, in the volume on commemoratives, assert that Malbon's opposition was decisive. All four outside artists protested. Manship's objections were to no avail. McAdoo selected the design submitted by Barber for the $half. Longman asked for an explanation, submitted new designs, and came to Washington to discuss the matter. According to a letter several months later from Dewey, she fell ill there and was unable to participate further. Numismatic historian Roger Burdett finds the explanation odd and suggests that there may have been some other reason. Barber was selected to design the quarter eagle. Both Aitken and Keck objected to the Commission of Fine Arts and to McAdoo. Keck also submitted additional designs. Both men met with McAdoo, Malbon and Dewey in Washington, and agreed to changes to the proposed designs. With that done, the $50 and $1 pieces were approved on March 6, 1915. The $half was approved 2 days later. Barber submitted his designs for the quarter eagle on March 16. They met an enthusiastic reception at the Treasury Department, and were approved. Designs. Barber's $half and quarter eagle. To what extent Mint assistant engraver George T. Morgan should be credited for work on the $half and quarter eagle is uncertain. Mint officials and employees were not consistent on this point. Assistant Director Mary M. O'Reilly said in 1936 that the Bureau's records indicated that Barber was the designer. Later the same year, she forwarded a statement by an unnamed Philadelphia Mint employee stating that by the very nature of Barber's and Morgan's long association, the two engravers would have conferred frequently, and that Morgan's technique is very obvious on both sides of both coins. The employee concluded that no mistake could be made, in my opinion, in crediting both men with the execution of these two coins. I am certain that this is correct. Q. David Bowers, in his book on commemoratives, mentions the dispute, credits Barber on the obverses of both coins, and gives both men credit on the reverse of the $half. He asserts Morgan created the reverse of the quarter eagle. The obverse of the $half depicts Liberty, who is scattering fruits and flowers from a cornucopia held by a small, nude child. Behind them, the sun sets beyond San Francisco's Golden Gate, as yet unadorned by its bridge. Tom Lamara, in his 1987 article on the Panama Pacific issue, pointed out that miners regarded the Golden Gate as a sign of good luck, and suggested it might have been better to depict it on a gold coin. The cornucopia, according to Burdett, demonstrates the advancement in trade brought by the canal, though the 1915 report of the director of the Mint states it signifies the boundless resources of the West. The obverse is based on Barber's earlier work, especially his medals for the annual Assay Commission. A representation of waves lies between the sun and the date, representing the maritime themes of the exposition. San Francisco's mint mark S is to the left of the date. The reverse depicts an eagle atop a Union shield, flanked by branches of olive, symbolizing peace, something Swiatek and Breen found ironic given the coin's issuance during World War I, and oak, the latter a choice which they were at a loss to explain. The 1915 Mint Director's Report deemed the oak branch an emblem of strength. Burdett notes that Barber's original design flanked the shield with two dolphins, representing the two oceans joined by the canal, instead of branches, and speculates McAdoo either did not understand the allegory, did not care for it, or simply did not like aquatic mammals on coins. McAdoo may also have been suffering from a surfeit of dolphins, as the dollar and octagonal $50 pieces bear them. The ones on the $half were removed and replaced by the branches. Art historian Cornelius Vermeulen deemed the obverse of the $half a halfway point between the designs on French silver pieces early in the new century and A. A. Weinman's Walking Liberty for the $half. The 50-cent piece bears the motto, "In God We Trust." As to the $50 pieces, the first commemorative coins to display it, that motto was first used on U.S. coins in 1864. In the 19th century, it was not mandatory that the motto be used, but it nevertheless appeared on most denominations of U.S. coins by the turn of the 20th century. In 1907 and 1908, there had been many objections to the motto's omission on the gold $10 and $20 pieces designed by Augustus St. Gaudens. In response to the public outcry, Congress in 1908 passed legislation requiring its presence on any circulating coin which had previously borne it, as both gold pieces had until 1907. The wording on the Panama Pacific pieces was left to the discretion of the Secretary of the Treasury, but officials may have remembered the fracas. Swiatek and Breen suggested that those involved in creating or approving the design may have moved to head off controversy. Barber's quarter eagle depicts, according to the Mint Director's Report, Columbia, representing the United States, seated the mythical seahorse, riding through the waters of the canal, with caduceus in grasp, the emblem of trade and commerce, inviting the nations of the world to use the new way from ocean to ocean. Reverse, American eagle, resting on a standard bearing the motto, E pluribus unum. The mint mark is on the obverse, to the right of the date. Swiatek and Breen suggested that the caduceus is said to represent the medical breakthroughs of Col. William C. Gorgaz's successful campaign to control malaria and yellow fever at the canal site. They wrote that on the reverse, the defiant eagle probably alludes to the necessity of keeping the canal open during World War I. The whole composition is meant to suggest a Roman legionary standard, which was a pole surmounted by some such device. The obverse of the quarter eagle, Vermeulen opined, derived from coins of ancient Greece depicting a Nereid, perhaps Thetis, who bears the shield of Achilles, a strider hippo camp. He suggested that the quarter eagle obverse may be Barber's answer to Theodore Roosevelt's and Augustus St. Gordon's clamor for modern coins in the Greek manner. The half-dollar's reverse, along with that of the quarter eagle, are classic symphonies of old designs, motifs that trace back to the eagles and shields of Longacre and William Barber revised into modern form. $1 and $50 pieces. Keck's obverse for the dollar was one of the alternative designs submitted to McAdoo, depicting the unadorned, capped head of a Panama Canal construction worker. Keck's original concept had featured Poseidon, god of the sea in Greek mythology. The worker, who represents the labor necessary to build the canal, is sometimes mistaken for a baseball player. Keck's reverse contains the words Panama Pacific Exposition, San Francisco, the denomination of the coin, and two dolphins, symbolizing the joining of the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans by the canal. The mint mark is beneath the letters D and O in $. Vermeuler called Keck's dollar a novel, daring use of the limited area afforded by such a small, thin coin. Compared with the earlier gold dollars, the coin is a work of art. Numismatist Ali Slabor, in his volume on commemoratives, noted that the Panama Pacific dollar presents a bold American design, completely different from the classical styles used on the other denominations. Aitken explained his design for the $50 pieces, in order to express in my design the fact that this coin is struck to commemorate the Panama Pacific Exposition, and as the exposition stands for all that wisdom and industry have produced, I have used as the central motive of the obverse the head of the virgin goddess Minerva. She is the goddess of wisdom, of skill, of contemplation. Moreover, she features prominently on the seal of the state of California. The use of the dolphins on the octagonal coin did much to add to its charm, as well as express the uninterrupted water route made possible by the canal. Upon the reverse I used the owl, the bird sacred to Minerva, also the symbol of wisdom. With these simple symbols, all full of beauty in themselves, I feel that I have expressed the larger meaning of the exposition, its appeal to the intellect. The goddess wears a crested helmet, as her Greek equivalent, Pallas Athena, was commonly depicted on ancient coins. It is pushed back to signify her peaceful intentions. She wears mail, which Swiatek and Breen found an odd anachronism. She bears upon her shield the Roman numerals MCMXV for the year 1915, the second use of Roman numerals on U.S. coins after the early types of the 1907 St. Gordon's double eagle. Though Aitken had originally expressed the date as 1915 in his original sketches, he had soon changed his mind. As these designs will not be used in any other year, there will be no need to change the year, as we must on other coins. Kevin Flynn, in his book on commemorative coins, described the branch on which the owl perches as that of a ponderosa pine tree. Several cones are visible. The design on the octagonal piece is smaller than on the round to allow space for the border featuring the dolphins. The mint mark is on the reverse, adjacent to the rightmost pine cone and directly above the letter O in San Francisco. The design for the $50 received contemporary criticism. Some suggested that the presence of the dolphins on the octagonal coin implied that the canal had been constructed for citation convenience. A 1916 column in the American Journal of Numismatics contained the conclusion that the criticism often heard that there is nothing American about the coin except the inscription is fully warranted. Swiatek and Breen dismissed criticisms as numerous and mostly irrelevant, based on total misreading of the iconography, with stupid claims that Pallas's Athena meant nothing on a U.S. coin unless she could be identified with liberty, and that Athena's owl would never mean anything to all of us. Vermeuler deemed the $50 coins a tour de force, dated to be sure, but unusual enough in all respects to be worthy of what American numismatic art could achieve. Later chief engraver Elizabeth Jones felt that the $50 pieces were stylistically in step with the period, considerable artistic merits. Jeff Garrett and Ron Guth, in the book on U.S. gold coins, deemed the Panama Pacific $50 pieces one of the most stunning issues ever produced by the U.S. government.